God is moving. It's Young People Nation.
Welcome to Young People Nation. Listen to us weekly as we commit to bring transparency, healing, and truth to the everyday situations in life that might bring you down. Join us for your weekly dose of inspiration. Thank you for listening to Young People Nation. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And now, here's your host, Eugene and Donna Perry.
Let's go. Christ is the foundation. Know His word gon' lead us. Know I'm already going. Taking steps I believe in. Giving guidance to the youth. Giving guidance to the lost. Giving the world to the project. Lead them back to the cross.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you're tuning in, but welcome back to Young People Nation, and we are back again with Dr. Rosetta Parker Austin, mental health evaluator. She is the co-founder of Warrior Watchman Incorporated and Watchman House, which is an organization for homeless youth. Welcome back.
Thank you.
As always.
Yes.
Yes. We're going to be talking on the subject of rage. Now, we dealt with anger, so if we don't deal with that anger, you had just experienced. If we don't deal with that anger, then you have that rage, and we see that a lot in our community. Let's talk about it. Let's get it.
Oh yeah. Can you define rage?
Okay, rage is just an elevated form of anger. When rage kicks in, it can take the body at least 30 minutes to recover from it. And your heart rate's elevated, your blood pressure's elevated, and believe it or not, your body temperature actually elevates when we are in rage.
Oh my goodness.
Is there any positive aspects for rage? I know many times when we used to play sports and all, we used to get all fired up and in a rage move to go out there and play. My heart was up. My everything about me was raised up. I couldn't feel no pain, and we tried to use it as a positive reinforcement. Could that be possible?
I think that when we are in those scenarios in sports, and that's an intense form of motivation, an elevated form of motivation, but rage is like uncontrollable. You don't really have full possession of your faculties when a person is engaged in rage.
I think that's what happened because I got that 15-yard penalty.
And unlike anger, rage is a complete blackout of thoughts. Correct.
It's almost like a dissociative incident, but it's not disassociation. It's kind of where a person totally loses control and they're not present in the moment. They are solely focused on rage and the elevated anger.
A mix of fear, desperation, anger, and panic.
Yes, anger and panic, because when a person's in rage, it's kind of like a person who's having if you ever witnessed a person having a panic attack, if you could get them to get their emotions under control, that the panic attack will subside. With the same principle with the person who's engaged in rage, if you could get them to get that emotion under control, then it will begin to subside.
That sounds like road rage to me.
That is a form of road rage, because when you see people flipping the bird or, telling each other some not so nice, colorful language or cutting people off with the car. But if they could take a moment and breathe before they react, then the decisions they make may be different.
I've been on both sides of that coin, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, because some people, they operate in a silent form of rage. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then sometimes that's where you see the massive killings and things of that nature, because this person is gone past anger.
Correct. And a lot of times we think that a person who's engaged in silent rage, it's like they weren't angry, but no, they were angry. And it's just an elevated form. And sometimes we think Hollywood, that anger has to be violent and uncontrollable and just all over the map. But that's not necessarily. Internal rage can just be a quiet anger where people withdraw. They get into it's sort of an irritable depression kind of state, but it's not irritable depression. But they get into that state where they meditate and they fester on whatever that negative thought is.
Wow. And that can go back to anger. That's a secondary emotion.
It is.
And so you never dealt with the root that caused you to go to the rage.
Exactly. Because sometimes we teach that anger is a result of hurt or somebody believes that they disrespected or they've been hurt or they have been ignored, meaning they've been hurt. And so when people meditate on that, rather than saying, okay, that moment happened, let me see what I can learn out of that situation and be the better for it, people will tend to meditate on that negative and just fester. Well, next time if this happens, I'm going to do that. If this happens, if somebody says this, I'm going to do that. Rather, we become bitter rather than better.
Oh, y'all really bring out some serious stuff here, because I have seen instances of that a lot. And if you don't let it go when it happens, you usually delay it. And then the first person walk into the office is going to have a bad day.
Exactly. It's kind of like why we wonder why people with ADHD or PTSD seem to demonstrate rage and anger more easily. It's because that inhibition is kind of like that neural pathway that said we have learned that when we are triggered, we go straight to anger or rage. And so what we try to do is help people with ADHD or PTSD or people who have anger management issues, rather than responding like you used to, what can we put in your toolbox? Meaning, what tools can we give you to help redirect your decisions from what you would used to be doing?
Non-lethal tools, right?
Non-lethal tools.
Yes. And, when you see on the news where a man has killed his wife and children, then he turns around and kills himself. That's a form of rage, and he appears to have been meditating on himself, that he's not good enough, but yet he doesn't want to live without his wife and children.
Exactly. And we think some people are just evil. And that's, while there is some people who are predisposed to some unhealthy behaviors, people in generally are good people. It's just that what are they meditating on? What are they focused on? What are they feeding on? It's kind of like the Native American proverb where they said that there's it is a docile creature within us, and then there's an aggressive creature within us. And the child asks, "Well, grandfather, which one comes forward?" He said, "The one I feed the most." So if we feed the negativity and the anger and the rage the most, that's what's going to come first.
That's very interesting, because most of these video games and most of these little get-togethers are focused on that. Like the old saying that it's a good day to die, and all like that. It plays on your mind and rams you up, and then you go in there and play the game. Play that video game, you're shooting, you kind of like ease out the emotion, and all of a sudden it becomes a norm. I got to have that, or I got to drink or smoke that just to calm me down, and it becomes a norm. Such in the military, drinking coffee. You ain't got that coffee in the morning, everybody having a bad day.
That's not just the military. That's out here in corporate world too, as well. But also, But when I heard Dr. Austin mention about what we feed ourselves, that's anything. You know, it's whatever I'm looking at on television, what I'm looking at on my phone, and that's for us as a society as a whole. What am I feeding myself the most?
Exactly.
That's what's going to come out.
And it's like what you were saying, Pastor Perry, is when it becomes the norm, where we meditate, especially with video games. We teach when we're playing the game that you've got to be aggressive, you've got to do this or you've got to do that to be on top and win. And we desensitize to the fact that I've just taken a life. It's just a video game. And so when we say, be mindful of the video games we're watching, people tend to respond, oh, it's just a game, lighten up. But it's not just a game.
Yes.
It is teaching a way of thinking. It's a teaching a way of thought. It's a teaching of a learned behavior.
Yes.
Right.
And so we teach the learned behavior that it's okay to kill, whether it's a video game or whether it's in life. It's okay. And that's what we're teaching when we reinforce with the violent video games or the violent scenarios, like stuff like rage rooms and different things like that.
I'll tell you one aspect of that is there is no pain. And without no pain, there's no consequences. You think it's more common in men or women?
Well, actually, it is. I want to say it's equal across the board. However, there's a thing in the brain that's called the amygdala, and it's the decision maker. So it's larger in women than it is in men.
Wow.
And so when men, theirs is smaller by nature, so their decision making time is shorter, so their responses are faster. Whereas a woman, she has more time, her amygdala is larger, so she has more time to think about the decision she's making. So that's why you don't see as many women respond that way. But the anger is the same and the rage is the same. It's just a matter of the process, the time it takes from going from 0 to 60. It's just a little different. That's all.
Well, I personally experienced that because me and this lady were going for the same parking space. And let me tell you, she rose to the occasion. I went on parked in the back, but she was not playing. She whipped that big old Suburban in there so quick. Whew.
Well, she was just saying that's my space.
And we also have to think, in addition to the amygdala, which is a natural, it's a physical instrument in the brain, the men also have testosterone that's feeding theirs.
Okay.
So that's also kicking up the decision making theirs a little shorter and a little more aggressive. When it's kind of like, you've ever noticed the woman who goes into menopause? She's not producing as much estrogen, and so her body is, that testosterone is starting to kick up, and she's becoming a little more aggressive. And where you used to be gentle flower, it's not such a gentle flower. She's more of a rose bush.
Ouch.
And so that's because of the decision making and the hormones. That's why whenever I treat someone with anger management issues, I want to look at holistically. I ask, when was the last time you've been to the doctor? Because your hormones may be off.
Yes.
And that's just a matter of a prescription, or it could just be a matter of counseling, teaching you how to manage without having to take the medication. And the same thing with a man. If he grew up in a family with alcoholics, then his brain chemistry is going to be different. And because that's why we teach women not to drink during a pregnancy, because a lot affects that baby's brain in the developmental process.
Wow. Okay.
And
I know in many instances like that, in those instances, I always say, yes, ma'am.
And the same thing with women in stress. If she's pregnant and she's constantly under stress, that's impacting that baby's brain.
wow. And, that's why it's important, even with dealing with PTSD, ADHD, any form of mental chemicals being off, atmosphere of peace is so essential.
Exactly.
That is so essential.
Can we go back to that though? I want to, for people with ADHD or PTSD or mental disorders, we have to stop seeing it as a demonic thing. It's like, oh, it's a demon. If it can be prayed out, cast out, or referred out, it's not a demon, first of all.
Yes.
And so we have to look at mental illness or people with PTSD, ADHD. It's a chemical thing. And so I wouldn't tell a person who's diabetic not to take their medicine.
That's right.
Or go get help. Or a person with cancer not to go get help. So we have to stop telling people with ADHD, PTSD, or mental health issues to go get help. Just pray about it and everything's going to be all right. Some things need intervention.
Correct.
Thank you. That's salvation right there.
Yeah, that right there. And that's the purpose of this podcast, because God has many ways. We just have to be open to the different ways. And
exactly.
Yeah, you just can't just say, well, come here, I'm going to pray for you, and we're going to get rid of this, and you got to have faith and do this. Sometimes it's like you stated, it's a chemical imbalance, and you just need some assistance. And just like you shared, if there's cancer, if there's diabetes, high blood pressure, you need to go to the doctor.
Exactly. We don't tell people with cancer, diabetes, or any other form of physical illness that you don't have faith. That's why you dealing with that problem. Same scenario with mental health challenges. It's not a matter of faith sometimes. It's just a matter of intervention. So a person shouldn't feel guilty if they need help or feel like their faith is less than because they need help.
Absolutely.
You really painted a picture there, because I have seen so many scenarios of the old Catholic priest stand up there casting out with his cross, casting the demon out, and it's saying, I ain't going nowhere.
You're so funny.
I'm serious.
You are so funny.
That's just not Catholicism.
That's right. That could be across the board.
Yeah, give me my
Talk about
medicine.
one of the movies you saw, right?
Yeah, give me my medicine.
Okay. But also, it's just like one of our neighbors deal with PTSD, and the kids were just outside playing, and he don't mind them playing in his yard. But what came to me is that he cannot deal with the pounding noise on his house. And so I told the kids, hey, he lives there by himself. There's no one there with him. I said, kids, no, come on, because you don't want him to come out and have an episode.
Exactly.
From all that noise. That's a natural thing that the children just actually go to their own yard and play, and not be banging on his house, because that causes a reaction. That's a trigger.
It's a
for
trigger.
him. Yes.
It's the same principle with 4th of July. People are firing fireworks in a neighborhood. You don't know if somebody in your neighborhood has PTSD.
Right.
And you have just traumatized the person all night because you want to shoot fireworks.
Yes.
My wife's the sheriff. When she shows up, everybody listens.
I just treat the children like I wanted someone to treat our children. You understand? I don't want them in danger of something happening. When you send your kids out to play, you just send them out to play. But I'm kind of the old school, hey, you don't want to do that.
Yep, the sheriff's here.
Come the sheriff. But I care about our children in the community, just like people cared about ours when they were younger.
And we have to get back to that community.
Yes.
Because it takes all of us getting involved, not just me, my four, and no more.
Yes.
Because once it happens to you next door, then it comes to your neighborhood.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
On an average, though, men are more outward with their aggression, with rage. Am I correct with that?
And they're more, it's more visible for a man because we usually, unfortunately, let's think about stereotypes. If it's an African-American woman, we say, oh, she's just an angry black woman.
Correct.
When that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
Or we see a particular man, if he's a large individual, then we say, oh, he's an aggressive person. But he could just be the most gentle giant you ever want to see.
Yes.
And so it's not necessarily that men are more aggressive. Women just have longer to think about their decisions because of the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex in their brain. That's the only reason it's different.
I can actually see past incidents where celebrities got so mad and enraged that they were chasing their spouse around, driving in the car, shooting at them as they drove the car, and she could run very fast and they get away. But that rage, now ain't thinking about what you're doing, but you want an outcome you don't want.
And that's a good point. If somebody's demonstrating rage in your relationship, believe who they are when they tell you who they are or show you who they are, and get to a place of safety.
Okay. All right. Well, that closes our first session. This has been so rich. As always, when we're meeting with Dr. Austin, it's one thing with connecting with her, you're going to get the beginning and the ending of a situation. I love that about you. So we're so honored to have you on this platform. We just want to give out a few hotlines, the 988 hotline, the crisis text home 741-741, and the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-TALK. That is 800-273-8255. Any closing comments, Dr. Austin?
If you're in a relationship with somebody who's constantly experiencing rage and anger, make sure safety is first.
Well, this has been Young People Nation. And remember, take time out to find out about whether you're living your life or just existing. This has been Young People Nation, and there is always hope.
Christ is the foundation. Know his word gon' lead us. Know I'm already going. Taking steps I believe in. Giving guidance to the youth. Giving guidance to the lost. Give the world to the project. Lead them back to the cross. He the number one prospect. He the top boss. I was broke, I was empty. He the one that paid the cost. Really thought that I was cool. There was nothing like the savior. Now it's time for the truth. The whole world been waiting. It's Young People Nation. 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 The whole world been waiting. Whatever you going through, I know what he gonna do. Don't matter the circumstance, we going back to the root. Keep going, keep going. Let that seed keep growing. You need peace and we know it. Now it's time to live holy. Young People Nation. You know what time it is. Young People Nation. Get ready, the time is here. Get ready, we vibing here. We about to let God in here. Young People Nation. It's Young People Nation. Yeah, do it for the heavens, you know where we going. Influenced by his love, you know we gotta show it. It's time to put the youth on to what God is doing. Cause I can tell you now, right now, that God is moving. It's Young People Nation.